Possibilities and probabilities. What do you train more on? Let's talk about that. Welcome to the Patriot Training YouTube channel. My name is Clay Howell. I'm the owner and head firearms instructor at Patriot Training. The topic of today's video is possibilities versus probabilities. What do you train on and why? And more importantly, do you practice and do you train especially on what you suck at? You should. Just throwing this out there for you to think about. According to FBI statistics, you are 3 times as likely to defend yourself with a handgun as you are a rifle. And so therefore, I've had several instructors point this out, and they say you need to take 3 times as many handgun classes as you do rifle classes, and you need to practice your handgun 3 times as much as you do your rifle. And that is very solid, very logical advice. And that's kind of ironic coming from the instructor at a school that specializes in the rifle and only does a handful of handgun classes. But, to be fair, the vast majority of training organizations out there teach a lot more handgun and only teach 1 or 2 rifle classes, maybe a carbine class, maybe a marksmanship or a long-range class. That's about it. And there's so much in between that they leave out, and that's where we specialize at Patriot Training. So what you need to do is you need to identify what you suck at. Many people are very protective of that which they suck at, and defensive even. And that's okay. That's natural. That's normal. I remember one time this prepper group asked me to perform their annual quals, their shooting quals. And so I did. And I remember this one guy, and he's in armed security, this, that, and the other. And he's like, do you need to see where I've qualified with this, that, and the other? And frankly, I said, no, sir, I don't. I don't really care what you've done there. It's going to matter what happens on the range. And I could read into it. I read between the lines. I saw to the crux of the matter, the heart of the matter, if you will. And I realized that this person had not had hardly any civilian training whatsoever. And I knew from the get-go that his scores were not going to be what he wanted. And lo and behold, I perform these quals, I issue these quals, I have one of my assistant instructors there and kind of notified my assistant ahead of time, and sure enough, this guy's scores were close to the bottom. And I mean, he passed, don't get me wrong, but he was not at all happy with his score. And so my point is not belittling this individual, it's saying this person, this fellow, was absolutely perfectly normal. He knew he sucked at shooting. If he was going to go out there and do quals with other people, he knew that other people are going to had a good chance of being better than him. So he wanted to puff himself up. I've done this, I've done that. I'm not terrible. And I didn't tell him he was terrible. That's not the point. The point is to find out what you do. Do that evaluation. Where did you drop points? What did you miss? Where did you not make time? Where did you, flub up? And make that part better. That's why I like quals. That's why I like measuring my performance, is because it tells you in black and white, this is what you suck at. Let's make it better. So that's one half of the equation, is practicing what you suck at. We all tend to practice what we're really good at. And there's an old story, and I don't know how much credence this has, but I remember seeing this video where it was suggested that back in the late 1980s, when the Detroit Pistons were the best basketball team in the NBA, Michael Jordan and his Chicago Bulls were getting better and they were becoming a playoff team, but they instituted what they called Jordan rules. And one of those Jordan rules was force Michael Jordan to his left. He's weaker to his left. And that might have been true in the 80s. Again, I don't know. I'm not the basketball wizard. I'm not the end-all be-all in that. But I do know, I remember watching many Bulls teams win championships in the 90s, and I do remember many, many times Michael Jordan moving to his left to score a bucket and even to take game-winning shots. So he obviously learned that. He improved. He practiced what he sucked at. So, that's definitely a big thing that you need to work on when it comes to possibilities and probabilities, is practice what you suck at, so that's no longer a weakness, it's a strength. And you see time and time again in the Asian martial arts, you will see many of these martial arts teach you to practice something on both sides so that you are, let's do an arm bar to the left, let's do an arm bar to the right, let's do a left punch, let's do a right punch, so that you get a more well-rounded approach and you have fewer and fewer weaknesses. The other thing is you've got to look at what is most probable. I remember speaking to a gentleman who was fresh out of the military, and he was asking me about that exact same quals thing I was just telling you about. I said, yeah, they're one of those prepper groups. They prep for, should times turn sour, shall we say, or, calamity, things of that sort. And he goes, oh, you mean like, the stuff hits the fan? I said, among other things, that's a possibility I think that they prep for, yes. And he goes, oh, okay, cool. We can go do some CQB. Y'all, if the stuff hits the fan and if your first idea is let's go do some CQB, you have been misled. That's like the last thing in the world you want to have to do. You want skills in it, but that is the last thing in the world you want to be doing in a stuff has hit the fan environment. That's a great way to get shot and killed. So, that goes to the possibilities versus the probabilities. Is it more likely that we're going to have worldwide war, or is it more likely that a storm hits and knocks my power out for a couple of days? So if I look at those possibilities versus the probabilities, here in the Nashville, Tennessee area, I've had power knocked out for more than a day at least twice in the last 5 years. Many people prep by having a generator on hand for that. Having ways to keep your house warm should that happen, etc., etc. So that would be an example of training and prepping for the probabilities versus the possibilities. I would say that, having a generator for your house should the power go out, for the vast majority of Americans is much, much more probable than you need to know how to do CQB. Just saying. So look at what it is that you're training for and how probable is it? How possible is it? And what you'll notice, going back to the sports analogy, is that many of these high-level professional athletes, they have fewer and fewer weaknesses because what they've done is one by one they've addressed each of these less likely possibilities and they've brought that up to a strength. And then they'll take the next one and bring that up to a strength. And I love to watch Major League Baseball. That's my favorite sport to watch in the whole wide world. And you'll see a pitcher that's, got a few years, on him will have a different, he'll have 4, 5, 6 pitches he can throw versus that guy that's just up from the minors and he's got a fastball and a slider and that's it. He's got 2 pitches. So, as they grow, as they mature, as they become more of a professional, they address more of those possibilities and they add more tools to the toolbox. And you know what? In the gun world, in the medical world, that's what we need to be, ladies and gentlemen. We need to take care of the probabilities first, learn about the possibilities as we go along. Brent's holding his hand. Everybody done on this side? Everybody done on that side? No, we got one more. Try to run out this mag. That's so damn long. Folks, that about does it for this video. I'd like to encourage you to hit like, hit subscribe, and click that notification bell so that you can be notified when a new Patriot Training video drops. Leave me a comment. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You feel I'm left out something? Is there another part of this that you would like to add to the conversation? Put it down there. I'd love to read it, my friend. And I must remind you, you don't have to be a patriot to train, but you do have to train if you want to be a patriot. Take care.